So, evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Everybody Knows We're Lame. Listen, last time we were with you, we've been on a bit of a hiatus. Chris was out for a bit, and last time we were with you, we were with a gentleman named Kirk Minahan from Barstool Sports, the Kirk Minahan Show. And I'll tell you what, Chris, that guy, he knows, you'll find him at a pep rally. That's how deep into Cheers he is, if you know what I'm saying. He knows his stuff.
He's a true Malone head. I mean, he knows his Cheers. We can only try to keep up with him.
So, because we've been away,
I can't get the haunting screams of Gus's dogs out of my head, but I'll do my best.
I'm waiting to talk about Gus till he leaves. I want to make sure he leaves to talk about what's happening with him. But we'll get to that. We got Cheers to discuss, for God's sake.
Yes, we do. One classic episode, one not so much.
I pretty much agree with that evaluation, I think. So what we decided to do today, we were going in order for a long time. I think we got up to 7-8 weeks. And Kirk's prediction that the name Woody Boyd would never be said on this program, that'll be bucked today, Buster.
Au contraire, Mr. Minahan.
We're skipping ahead. What we decided to do, since it's Thanksgiving, is watch a couple Thanksgiving episodes. And I texted Chris saying, let's just do the first two, because in my mind, 11 seasons, I figured they did at least 5 or 6 Thanksgiving episodes, just because that's kind of what sitcoms do usually, but they only did 2. For some reason, I thought at least in the first season there was one, but we're covering the only 2 from seasons 5 and 11.
You know what confused me, I think, Mike, was the Halloween episodes of like Gary's Old Town Tavern. Like, I don't know, the holiday episodes, I guess, might have got all merged in my brain. Yeah. And I thought there was more than that, too. But there were 2 of them. I mean, they're both legitimate Thanksgiving episodes, especially the first one. So, I mean, I think this is pretty fair.
Yeah. And I like that. The reason I like that they didn't do that is because it wouldn't be natural to have a Thanksgiving episode every year. Like, these are not relatives. And even the idea that they would all spend Thanksgiving together, like, for me, that was always a little, with any sitcom, even like Friends, where they're close friends or whatever, it's like, why wouldn't Ross and Rachel be with their family on Thanksgiving? They live in fucking Long Island. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm glad they didn't do a bunch where it's like every year they go to Carla's house, because that doesn't seem feasible. But so let's start with season 5, episode 9, Thanksgiving Orphans, which I think is like you said, that's probably the one that's considered a classic. I think it's a great episode. The cold open, to me, I thought it was a little weird they started with Christmas, though. That's my only gripe, I guess, with this episode.
Yeah, I guess. It was definitely a little bit strange, but I don't mind it. Like the holiday season, I don't know, Christmas is all kind of wrapped up, and I thought it was a pretty funny Frasier bit. I actually didn't mind it.
I like the Frasier bit. The thing I noticed more, and maybe maybe just trying to come up with things to talk about for the show, I'm looking too much into it, but I thought like the delivery of Woody's line, where he tells Sam, like, Woody Boyd, or Woody Harrelson, is the classic dumb guy in a sitcom. He's the Joey Tribbiani of Cheers. I don't know why I keep making Friends analogies, but to me, it shows how good an actor Woody Harrelson is. His delivery of that line in that cold open, to me, is so much better than the classic dumb sitcomish line. He plays it in kind of a way where almost he thinks he's smarter than Sam. And like, I think you can see Woody Harrelson, how great an actor he is, just in delivering dumb lines like that sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean Woody Harrelson is maybe the best character actor of our lives. The fact that it shows you though, like you talk about his like acting chops. Like think of the post Cheers career Woody Harrelson had, and think of the post Friends career Matt LeBlanc had. Right. Like you can just tell, like this is just Woody Harrelson is nominated for Oscars. Like he's top billed major films that have been directed by like some of the best directors you've seen, Oliver Stone. Like he's a legitimately great actor, and he is so good in that role. And I think that's why he never got tired of Woody, and that's also why Woody stood out from Coach, because Coach was very well played too, but yes, Woody has more depth to him than Coach ever did.
Yeah, that's actually a much better analogy too. That like the way that Coach played the dumb guy is like, it was very sitcomish. It was great. He was a great character, but it was much more sitcomish, where I think you see the chops that Woody has a little more. It plays better, I think. It seems more natural.
Yeah, everyone always talks about how, like, and it's true, like Kirstie Alley, going from Shelley Long to Kirstie Alley changed Cheers. And it did. I think it definitely like extended the show a couple of seasons. Yeah. But people sleep on like how big of a change having Woody from Coach. And I loved Coach. But Woody and having an actor like that in your on your ensemble completely adds so many layers to the show that it never would have had Coach lived.
And this is skipping ahead to the end a little bit, but since we mentioned Coach, I did really like, as a guy, in our original run of this show, I mentioned a few times that I hated how they treated the death of Ernie Pantuso. It was virtually not acknowledged, like, as far as the show goes. They had little nods to the fact that he was no longer with us, but there wasn't like a goodbye Coach episode, really. So I did really like that at the Thanksgiving table, when they're kind of cheersing everyone, Sam gives a cheers to Coach. I thought that was a nice moment.
Yeah, it's strange. In 1980s sitcoms, people died a lot, like the actual actors. So Coach died. There was a show called Night Court, which was very popular on NBC around the same time as Cheers. Two of the women bailiffs died during that show. Before you had Roz come in, those women died. A show called Give Me a Break with Nell Carter. She was a housekeeper, and the man that she was housekeeper of, this guy that had 3 daughters, the actor died, and these people all died pretty young. It was just weird how people just died left and right in the 80s. So I don't know if it made it so when Coach, I'm not saying the actor dying wasn't a big deal, but in the time frame of where Cheers was, a newer show at the time, and people died all the time in TV shows, maybe it wasn't as big of a deal as it should have been. Because I agree with you, Mike. It is very strange to watch episodes, and they don't really mention him enough. And he was a huge part of those first few seasons.
Yeah, they kind of just go through, they're like, "Hey, where's Coach?" Someone walks in and goes, "Hey, where's Coach?" And Sam's like, "He's dead." It's like, oh, Jesus.
And I think it's the same episode where Woody pops in, right? It's like, oh, we got the new guy. Now we're fine.
Yeah.
Another day at the job.
Yeah. Oh, it was Woody that was looking for him, actually. I think that's how they played it. Yeah. One last thing about the cold open for you kids out there. A lot of people don't know. If you've ever heard of the show Frasier, Kelsey Grammer was the star of that show. Frasier makes an appearance in this episode of Cheers, and many others, in fact. A lot of people don't know that. So the character of Frasier was in this episode.
That's true, yes. Yeah. Believe it or not, Frasier was a main part of the show Cheers. Yes.
Did you think, I kind of go back and forth on this. So Montante got his balls busted for not knowing that Frasier was originally on Cheers. I think rightfully so, but then I'm like, I love sitcoms and I got into Cheers, but I would assume none of my friends are that heavy into Cheers. Is it that crazy? Because Montante's my age, roughly.
So my takeaway is, what does he think when the Cheers people pop in on Frasier? There are episodes when Sam goes to Seattle and Woody goes to Seattle. It must have been a mind-blowing experience for him if he never knew that Frasier was on that show.
He might not watch Frasier, though. He might just know the show because it was on in the 90s. That's what I'm saying. Is if he has just says he has no knowledge of either show, I don't find it as egregious as I originally did, maybe.
Well, isn't Mike Montante the same man as claims he's watched 12 movies his whole life? I don't think Mike's a cultured man. I don't know if he's the best example here for a generation.
Exactly. So, as we get into the episode, Diane has plans to... This is, again, what I'm saying with weird sitcom-y Thanksgiving plans. Even Diane's plans of, my professor invited me over. I always find those to be, they're almost bending over backwards to create reasons these people wouldn't be with their families for Thanksgiving. It never feels natural on sitcoms, even if the person isn't that close with their family.
Yeah, I have my very first note is this. Are they all losers? I appreciate how they show loneliness. So
yes.
It got me thinking. So all right, this is very weird. You would never go have Thanksgiving people you are at a bar with every day. You're probably some weird alcoholic anyway. The whole concept of Cheers, if you think too much about it, it falls apart. But it's a sitcom. And I do think there are people that are not going to Thanksgiving with their people at a bar. But I'm guessing there are many people, many people who have Thanksgivings alone. It's very common. Luckily, thank God, I'm blessed where I have family, I have a wife, and I have people around. But that's just because of luck. If you're an only child and your parents are gone and you don't have a network of people, you just moved to a new town, you're having Thanksgiving alone. So I'm sure that's a pretty common thing, and I kind of like how the show shows that. And I like how it did show in this first episode, at least, that they all were struggling with that loneliness, and I'm sure that's very relatable.
I think Cheers is the thing that maybe they do best is that it would be a very if you thought a lot about it, a lot of it would be pretty depressing. If you think of the idea of just Norm racking up a tab at the bar every day and not talking to his family. If you take these things serious, if you do what Fresh Prince did, where they make it into a drama on Peacock, it could get pretty dark, you know?
Yes, right.
But what I think Cheers did beautifully is they don't tug at your heartstrings too much, but they also don't shy away from it. Like something I realized in the next episode we're going to talk about is it was right after Lilith cheated on Frasier,
Right.
and they get divorced. And that to me is something that it's covered in a way that you don't get in any sitcoms, really. Like, it seems like a heavier topic, and they address it. They don't shy away from it, but they also make it kind of funny and light, and it's not overly schmaltzy either.
No, I completely agree. And that's what helps when you have great actors like Kelsey Grammer or BB Newirth, like having those actors in your stable of people you can work with, then you can have these deeper, I think, plot lines. But like the issue I have with the second episode, we're going to jump back and forth, I'm guessing, just in the conversation here. But like,
Yeah.
That second episode had none of those same like heartstrings where these people were lonely. That felt very sitcom-y, where we just need to throw them all together in the same room because we have this Woody plot line here. So let's just get them all together and have Thanksgiving and not even think about it. And it felt very careless. It felt very thrown together. It didn't have any of the same, like I said, sentimentality or the meaning of the holiday that the first episode had. And because of that second episode, that's like, honestly, one of the worst episodes of Cheers I've seen in a while. It was like eating something like popcorn. It had no filler to it.
And for anyone trying to follow along, it's season 11, episode 8. Ill-Gotten Gains is the title. If you guys are watching these episodes along with us,
which was the last season of Cheers, by the way.
Which is why I wonder if that's why they threw a Thanksgiving episode in. It's like, well, we won't get to do this again, so maybe let's have them have Thanksgiving together one last time or something. I don't know. But you're right. It did seem haphazard. It didn't seem necessary to make it a Thanksgiving episode.
And it just lacked the believability as much as it's obviously a reach. You're not going to have Thanksgiving people at a bar. I get that. But it did, at least they tried very hard to make it as believable as possible in the first episode.
I actually think, I'd go as far as to say, I think it is believable. That's what I was trying to say with, like, in many sitcoms, it doesn't make any sense to me. In this one, they made it as believable as they could. The only problem I had with the believability is, like, Norm's excuse of, I'm going to, with my mother-in-law and my wife. And then he's kind of like, fuck her. Which that's Norm's character to be like, who cares what she wants? But the idea that he's spending Thanksgiving with his wife and mother-in-law is not weird. It's not really something, because they kind of make it seem like, he's whipped. But it's like, that's what you do on Thanksgiving. You wouldn't go to Carla's house, you know?
But, okay, so let's juxtapose that. So, like, the first episode, we have Norm. He kind of I think it's more about him putting his foot down and being like, listen, this is important to me. I want to have this Thanksgiving with my friends. And she's like, no, I'm going to go with my mother. And because of that, they have Thanksgivings apart. That makes sense. The next episode, he's like Homer Simpson. He doesn't know if his father-in-law is alive. Like, it's just such a weird, bizarre, like, excuse to have him there that doesn't make any sense. It just feels so lazily written. Where that first episode, I don't know, yeah, it's a reach, but I don't know, and then like at the end, she comes back for him. Like, that all felt really connected in a much better way, I thought, than him just being like basically, having a mental disability.
I do think the bit in the season 11 episode where he doesn't know if his father-in-law is alive, I thought that was one that it was like funny and then not that funny, and then it went on long enough. Like when they brought it back with the maiden name, I thought it kind of got funny again. Like I was okay with it by then. Like for a minute you're like, this is going on too long, and then by the end you're like, okay, it's not so bad.
Oh, it lost me. It was just so far-fetched. I'm like, this is exactly what they say about sitcoms. When they just lean into what they are so much, they don't become human anymore. They're just becoming just like either complete idiots or like someone that's not relatable at all. And that's the whole idea of Cheers, is the relatability of it to me.
So since we've bounced back and forth a little bit, let me explain the plot of the season 11, episode 8, Ill-Gotten Gains. So Woody, by this point, is married to Kelly, who is very wealthy. By the way, so her father-in-law is kind of the foil of this episode. Is that a Maine accent that he's doing, or is it sort of nondescript?
I guess it's maybe supposed to be Maine. It certainly didn't sound Maine to me, but she is from that area, right? Isn't that the whole thing?
It was more Maine than anything else I could put my finger on, really.
Yeah, it almost sounded British. It was so bizarre. It sounded like someone, if they like looked up the word affluent in the dictionary, like
you're a rich man. Play a rich man.
Yeah, be rich. Yeah. Right.
So Woody and his father-in-law, it seems like basically wants them to sign a post-nup of some kind, so that Woody can't get his mitts on their money. And so Sam tells him to kind of stick up for himself, and they go over to confront him, and they walk in on Kelly's father cheating on Kelly's mother. But get this, folks. Woody doesn't actually see it. The father-in-law just misinterprets it. So kind of to your point, this felt very much like a sitcom staple where it's just a miscommunication. This actually was a lot of what Frasier turned into, I feel like, where it's a miscommunication and these people are, talking about one thing while the other person is talking about something else. And it felt very Frasier-y to me, but it is kind of a sitcom staple that you see in a lot of shows, I feel like.
Yeah, and like Frasier was more elegant about it. This was so haphazard. Like at one point, the butler doesn't know like where the rooms in the house are. He needs Sam to show him where the rooms are.
Yeah. Oh, that bothered me too. Is the butler goes? They go, "Hey, you gonna introduce or say that we're here? Tell Mr. Gaines that we're here."
Right.
And he says it kind of quietly. Obviously, he's not hearing him. Andy has a guest. The butler would be like, "Hey, knock, knock. You got guests here." It didn't make any sense that Woody would have walked in on him.
No. And then when they obviously they want to get Sam out of this conversation. So because they want to have Woody confront the father-in-law. So then to get the Sam out of the room, like the butler doesn't know where rooms in the house are. Needs Sam to show him where things. It was all very weird. It didn't make any sense. Like I said, this is once again lazy script writing, lazy script, which is a shame because the back end of this season I think is very well done. The Tom Berenger stuff. No, the last like 8 episodes of Cheers are fantastic, but maybe this first half they would just kind of run out of gas. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because the other thing that kind of bugged me was like, so John Hale in the John Allen Hale, is that what the full name they call him all the time?
John Hill, I think is how
Hill. Sorry, you're right.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's kind of the Gary of the later seasons, essentially.
Right.
He owns Melville's, and he's like Sam's rival, basically. So John Hill is he's away at the Cape, and they go upstairs to use his plates and all this kind of stuff for their Thanksgiving dinner. He evidently gets a notification of some kind that his security alarm went off. He comes back from the Cape, which on Thanksgiving Day would have to be a disaster, I'd imagine. That's not an easy drive, I don't think.
I wouldn't think either. It's very easy or very hard. Maybe there's no traffic on the Cape because it's Thanksgiving. Either way, it's a bizarre drive for sure.
Yeah, so he comes back and Sam gives him a toast, like pretends he didn't see him come in and gives him a toast. So John Hill is kind of like, all right, you rascals, and he leaves.
Right.
And that felt very weird too, because it's like, this is a guy that loves busting Sam's balls. And he's kind of just like, hey, put my plates back and I'm going to drive back to the Cape on Thanksgiving night. That also didn't make any sense to me.
It didn't make it. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed Ted Danson's confidence in it. Like, oh, I saw him through the reflection. That's why I honored him instead of made fun of him. I liked that kind of that beat of that joke. But I don't know if I've ever seen a Cheers episode where John Hill has such a small role. Like usually if he's in the episode, it's kind of an episode around his character. I don't ever remember him being on screen for like 25 seconds. He must have gotten that script and been like, what the fuck? I'm in it for, barely a heartbeat. It was very strange. This whole episode was really weird. It's like the worst of Cheers. I felt like the worst elements of Cheers. And it contrasting with an episode, by the way, the first episode, TV Guide, said was the 7th best episode in TV history. I don't rank it that high. But yeah, TV Guide basically is the best episode of Cheers ever. I don't agree with that, but it's a fantastic episode nonetheless. So to contrast it with this horrible Cheers episode was very, very odd to watch. It was quite a juxtaposition.
Yeah, I do think... See, I don't even know if I would put it in my top 3 or 4 episodes of Cheers, never mind TV episodes. But I do think it was a great episode, and I thought they perfectly played, like I said, kind of the sentimentality angle. Because I really like when they're, toast, like after the food fight. So they have, everything goes wrong all day. Norm, by the way, clearly didn't give himself enough time to cook an entire turkey. but everything's going wrong with the dinner and everything. And, a food fight breaks out. And, but the one thing, I look up fun facts on IMDb, and I guess there's a moment like after the food fight that is in the show. I didn't catch it, but Kelsey Grammer says, "Nice turkey, George," to George Wendt. And I guess they just left it in.
I didn't catch. I'm so bad at catching some of that stuff because I get like sucked into the show, and I'm bad with like continuity errors too. I never catch them. Like I'm just have a bad eye for stuff like that. That's very funny.
And the other thing is that that is playing Vera, which is technically the only time we see Vera. We see her shadow in a few episodes, and I think you kind of hear her mumbling on the phone here and there.
You
But
see
this is
her
the only
legs as
one.
well in one episode.
Yeah, this is the only one we technically see here, even though she got a pie to the face or something. And it's played by George Wendt's actual wife, his real life wife, that has that one line at the end.
Yeah, which is great. That I had to look that up too. I didn't know that before we did this. Other than the thing, I guess they did that food fight twice. So they actually did 2 takes of it to make sure they got everything. I guess it was chaotic. They didn't choreograph it or really rehearse it. They just kind of like let them go, you know. So once Sam flicks the food, then it's all off and running, and they could do whatever they wanted to it. The cast, you could tell during that food fight, they honestly like love each other. You can tell they all get along. That was kind of fun to watch. Like the camaraderie they have and like the friendship they have, like you could tell those are people that genuinely care about each other because you could tell they're just having fun.
One other thing I wanted to do, but first, any other thoughts on these 2 episodes? Before I touch on one other subject, real quick.
I guess like for the first episode, that was one of the rare times they left the bar early on in that show, like in Cheers. Like obviously, by the time we get to the ill-gotten gains one, they leave the bar as well. But I felt like by that point in the show, they're leaving the bar a lot. But those first, like the Shelley Long years, they didn't leave the bar a ton. So it's kind of cool when they did. And I liked how Carla's house wasn't very nice. It felt realistic. Right. And I love how the TV, that little the bit with Kelsey Grammer and Sam kind of constantly changing the TV, like where it was structured in the living room. I like those little things. I like. That's what I like about Cheers. I felt like the next episode just had none of those things.
Yeah. Oh, and I meant to compare cold opens too, because I thought the cold open of the season 11 episode stunk, where it was like, I guess Carla was punishing Cliff, so he was just outside, and Sam talks to him for a minute. That also felt very lazy compared to the season 5 episode that I thought was a very good cold open. The season 11 episode, it was almost like you might as well just start the episode. What was the point of this?
Yeah, she has him tied up outside because he said something mean to her, or called her. I think we said I don't say it on YouTube, but a bad word for a little person, and then she had him tied up, which was bizarre. Yeah. So that was not good, not good. But like I said, the back end of that season is good. I have to rewatch some of these other season 11 ones because that was tough. You think you rewatched them more recently than I have? Did you find other issues with that last season?
Not as well, yes, in the sense that things started to happen where you could tell them getting to a point where it was much like seasons 8 and this is what I always say about seasons 8 and 9 of Seinfeld, because people criticize those 2 seasons,
yes, they do,
post Larry David years, where I love a lot of those episodes. I think some of the funniest episodes are in seasons 8 and 9 of Seinfeld. But I do acknowledge, like, yes, they're much more ridiculous, which isn't the foundation of the show. Like, it's the idea that Kramer is the Merv Griffith set in his home is silly, obviously. It doesn't make any sense. I think that's kind of where Cheers started to get a little bit, where you're like, okay, they're winding down here. You know, they're running out of ideas, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, Seinfeld definitely gets a lot more goofy those last 2 seasons. I'm with you, though. I really like those. I like that element of the show. I think it's, like, fun, and I also love we have the Larry David seasons, which are darker in tone, those first 7 seasons. But I like that shift that happens in the end of Seinfeld, where at least this episode, was not good. But there were some bad episodes of Seinfeld the last 2 seasons too. They're not all hits.
Sure. So one thing I want to ask you about, because we never got to do this in our first run of the show, and since we have episodes, or maybe we did briefly discuss it at some point, but it was 3 years ago. I don't remember. So. Since we have an episode with Kirstie Alley, who, rest in peace, has passed away since the last time we did this show, and of course Shelley Long, do you have a preference, Diane or Rebecca?
We're talking overall, not just these episodes, correct?
No, definitely not these episodes. Just the characters in general.
It's so tough because the show is really different. I always kind of lean more toward the Shelley Long character, just because that's more like fully formed, but there's more of a point to her character. Where Rebecca Howe, sometimes she's only there because of the charm of Kirstie Alley. Like, she's a business manager and she's dating Sam and she's not dating Sam. Like, at some point in real life, that woman would no longer be at the bar, but then you want her around because Kirstie Alley was so good in that role. So I think as an actress, I give Kirstie Alley the nod. As a character, I give it to Diane Chambers.
Yeah, I think the point of the character, it's definitely Diane. Like, the idea of her versus Sam was kind of the heart of the show for a long time. But like if you're just looking at it as a character, I think Rebecca makes more sense with those people than Diane Chambers. It's not unbelievable that Diane would be around that long, but you would think it would be hard for someone like her to develop the relationship that she had with this group of people, where Rebecca, I think, was much more believable that she would hang around for as long as she did.
I think that has to do with the actresses. So like Shelley Long got along with the cast very well. But she left the show, tried movies, didn't really work. But that was what, but she left, and her leaving was definitely surprised them. But Kirstie Alley, from everything I read about the show, just got along so well with the cast that she became kind of one of the group more than Shelley Long ever did. Yeah. So I think part of what you're seeing is just like that natural chemistry between like friends, where with Shelley Long, I think she was always kind of on the outside looking in a little bit. But even the stuff with like Shelley Long and like Rhea Perlman, like that's a funny dynamic that you don't get again after when you get Rebecca. Like there's not that same like hostility, I feel like. And they do it with like Carla and Cliff. They really try to amp that up once Shelley Long leaves. But I feel with Diane Chambers, it's more, I don't know. I enjoy that dynamic more, I guess. I don't know.
Without Diane, there's not an enemy of the bar, quote unquote, the way Diane was, where they would kind of all gang up on her. No, there was not that relation. Because even like you say Cliff and Carla, but everyone else loved Cliff for the most part,
Yeah, I'll say this too, and this is like, I'm obviously just a huge fan of Cheers. I wouldn't want 11 seasons of Rebecca, but I wouldn't want 11 seasons of Diane. Like I feel like it worked out perfectly. Where I could take 11 seasons of Woody, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. Because I think Woody and Coach, while I think Woody's a better actor, I think those are much closer characters.
Yes.
Like the point of them was much closer, anyways.
Absolutely.
All right. So I assume Gus is no longer with us. He's left.
Well, we know his dog is no longer with us. That we heard the dog's last screams, which was terrifying.
Yeah, he left. We have no idea if this show is ever going to get up because Gus left to go bowling.
Yeah, so Gus.
So me and Clemmer are just going to close our computers and be like, "Well, I hope it goes up."
Gus, with all the confidence in the world, and God bless him, he says to us, "He's like, all right, so when you guys are done, don't worry, it's all ready to go. Just close out your browsers, and I'm gonna send this right over to Menners." It's like I don't have that much confidence turning my light switch on. Like, how do you know that?
Meanwhile, Justin is waving his cock in his face. He's at a grocery store right now buying potatoes. He is just dunking on Gus at every turn. It's crazy.
I feel like with the week Gus has had, when he told us that he's going to go bowling and just kind of leave us on our own, I'm like, I was like, I don't know, bro. I don't know if that's the best plan.
This is where Gus thinks I'm an asshole because I think, maybe I'm wrong, maybe Kirk can correct me on Monday or whatever. I think I know the show well enough to know not to step in there. And I would, like, my mind says, hey, Gus, why don't you skip bowling and stick around to upload this fucking show? But my knowledge of the show says, let him do what he wants, and we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, I kind of went in that mode too. I'm like, all right, buddy. I don't know. We both sat silently. I think we're both well trained because we both just sat there. We're like, okay, Gus. It's like watching a man get buried alive. That's the Andrew Augustus experience.
Yeah. Hey, I've made similar mistakes to Gus, and I didn't have anyone holding my hand, so he needs it. He's got to get used to it, I guess.
I'm still getting shit for going to a Celtics game, so yes, we're in the same boat, Mike.
So do you and I need to, now we've had our fun, but now we can put the veil down here. Do we have to clear the air here, you and I? Because you said some things about me. I figure we should talk about it here. Because I don't want to be a total phony. I think you know my take on you essentially because it's very similar to everyone else that listens to the show.
I feel like I don't know your take on me at all, actually.
So I think the argument you put up with Kirk about the Justin thing, Justin going to Barstool Idol, and you saying that was kind of shitty of Justin to do. That argument to me encapsulates kind of my issue with you. It's not an issue with you as a guy. It's my issue with you. Like, if you listened to Kirk's show and Justin was doing that to me or Gus or Cullinane or whoever the fuck, you would find that fun. You would understand the humor in that, right?
I don't know if I would. Like, that's the thing is, like, you can be a fan of Kirk's show and you can be a fan of Kirk, but not necessarily agree with everything he does. I don't know if I would have agreed with that. I thought, and obviously, I'm obviously biased. It happened to me. I thought it was a bridge too far for me. Like, that felt, him heckling me at the basketball game was, I loved it. That was great. That felt very KMS. That felt very like, all right, this is the deal that I made because that all worked.
Yeah.
I understand my point of view. Obviously, it's my point of view, so I understand it. That that I was just really frustrating. I'm trying to get this job. I know it's a reality show, but it was a real job that was being offered. I wanted it. But on the flip side, Kirk's point, I understand that you made this Faustian bargain here. You basically got a free ride. You didn't have to fill out an application to get this spot on the show. You got to pay a price for that. So, everyone's got to pay the piper. So I get that too. And hearing people like Jeff and Dan and Kirk all say, no, this probably helped you.
I think it definitely. I'm surprised you don't think that.
It's honestly, and like I said, it might just be blinded by just being the guy in those shoes. It doesn't feel like that. It felt like this is awful.
So that I can relate. I can get that day, like the next day, being like, "Fuck, Justin ruined my chances," whatever. I saying a year later, looking back at it, being like, "Oh well, it was something they talked about it. It was a funny thing. It made me interesting. Like it made me into a character or whatever." I'm surprised you don't see that now in hindsight that it helped you.
Oh, so when it happened, up until I actually got the job, I had like visceral hate for Justin. Like it was like I hate this guy.
Right.
After I got the job, that hate turned to just like a dislike. And like part of it too is just I just don't know, and I used to this a number of times in the show. I just don't know how to read Justin too, which is I like it is like I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing. I like everyone to get along and have fun, and like all have a great time. And like even saying goodbye to Justin the last week, I don't know if he was like happy to like he didn't seem he was so monotone and so like ambivalent of me even being like breathing the same air as him at the end.
His tweet about you was very. Did you see his tweet afterwards?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
I thought that was very funny. There's a monkey off my back.
That's how I feel though, because I certainly don't want to not like someone, and I don't want people not to like me, unless it's like I don't know. I just didn't want that, It's not like when I say not like it's people, someone I actually know in real, like a random internet person, who cares, whatever. But someone I know and I've like hung out with a couple of times and like I like them at one time. Like I want that person to like me, sure.
Oh, and so I think my other big question is when the stuff went down where I said that someone in your family unsubscribed to my Patreon because Craig told me that, and you started shitting on Craig for that. I didn't understand that either because it was if we're gonna put fault on anyone, it was 100% my fault. I'm the one that said it.
My issue with it initially was, first off, my wife unsubscribed. I was still subscribed. So you weren't the one looking at information. Craig was relaying that information to you, I am guessing. Right. And Craig was just lazy and didn't look up my name.
Sure.
And like, that's what pissed me off. It's like, I'm still subscribing. And by the way, I'm still a subscriber to Blind Mike, bro.
Stop wasting your money. It's fine. I won't make fun of you this time if you unsubscribe.
Well, in that case, I'll unsubscribe. No, but like, so that's what annoyed me. Oh, I was definitely like annoyed with both of them. I was mostly annoyed. I was more annoyed with Craig in that moment. It's just like, what the fuck? You're just not even giving the right information. You're that a fucking idiot. That's
interesting. See, so that's true. That's interesting to me because I think those kind of line up where you're saying you're annoyed with Justin, you're annoyed with Craig, because it's a disconnect where I'm surprised as a fan of KMS that those things annoy you. Again, for as long as they do, I get overly sensitive about plenty of shit, as you guys talked about. But with time, I can look back and be like, oh, I get that that's part of the show and whatever. I think that's what I'm most surprised by with you is like the stuff where people criticize you for that you don't eventually see like, oh, I see that point at least,
Oh, you do in time. I remember too, like when all that shit was going down, I just started the stuff with with Craig. That was all happening. I just started a Barstool. I'm getting every which way from the Minifans. I'm just getting, I got Kirk shitting on me on the show. I got, and the thing that's frustrating too is like you guys will have a question about me sometimes, and then you just answer it yourselves with like instead of just calling me, that. And that happened like for the first year or whatever after I was off the show, and that was like infuriating sometimes too. It's like, all right, just like
but that's just the show. That's what you guys did. You guys were talking about me on Friday, and I didn't like call in and go, I'm not sensitive. That's incorrect.
The difference is when I was doing the show, I could always come every week and at least kind of explain myself. Sure. Where when you're off the show for, however long I was off, then you don't have a voice anymore. And I guess I could call in, but if I call in every time I disagree with something, that would make me a crazy person. So it was.
That's the ultimate. That's where I struggle too, where it's like if people say you're sensitive and you go, no.
Yeah.
It's look.
I am not
yes, he is.
So that was tough. No, it's like it's being a fan of the show and being a character on the show are two very different things too. Like, yes, when I was listening to Kirk and Callahan or listening to the first couple seasons of KMS when I was driving to work and stuff, yeah, they were all characters. You're not real people. But then when you meet it changes the dynamic. And then that, for me at least, like I have a hard time kind of connecting those two back together again to just being a show again. You know what I mean? I have a hard time being in the real space and then taking myself out of it and remembering it's just a show sometimes. I think I'm getting better at it. And like just being at Barstool and being more comfortable, I moved, I sold my house, we moved here, all the shit that we're going, it was just a lot going on at once. And I probably wasn't looking at things as fairly or as accurately with much sense of humor as I should have been. No, that's I'll definitely I'll plead guilty of being sensitive, but won't be the first time, won't be the last time.
What it really comes down to is I was invested in the 1995 Mariners, and where the fuck are they? Where's our playoff run? What happened? Where are the 95 Mariners, for Christ's sake? And then you teased us and you told us it was coming. It never came back. What happened?
So you this is one thing. This is like a small thing. The fact that I still remember this shows you how stable my mental health is. But you had said that he doesn't have Wi-Fi, he's lying. It's like, no, I'm at an Airbnb. I really don't have Wi-Fi. And I was living in Long Island. I was having this crazy commute back and forth. And I do have Wi-Fi now. I was gonna actually.
Oh, good. Thank God.
I do. Yeah, the long nightmare is over. But then it's baseball season, so I'm like, I'm not gonna compete with actual games. But I think I might do just have an expansion draft. Can I do another sim where I just do expansion drafts and just do one of those from the 90s on Twitch and maybe try to tie it to the Black Friday sales we're doing and Cyber Monday sales and just do something on an off day and be like, hey, how can we do a drive for selling more merch and see how that does. And if that does pretty well, maybe bring it back because I love doing it. I still do baseball simulators at home all the time. So I would like to bring it back now that the baseball season's over. I think I might do something, in the next couple weeks. At least a one-off.
Let us be a part of it. Quench our thirst, for God's sake.
The expansion drafts are really fun. So I think that might be a good, old transition, hopefully. And if it blows up and it does great, they're really easy to do. And I can do them myself. So I'd love to do them again.
All right. Any gripes with me you want to air out before we get out of here? This is how we have to wrap up because we can't say we just leave, I guess, because we don't have a producer anymore.
Well, no one will ever see it.
Before we go, anything else?
No, this is just therapy for me and you. Yeah, I don't think so. Are you enjoying the post-Cullinane era? Are you enjoying this? How do you feel about kind of where the show is going from that element of the new producers?
I like it. I think I think watching them people bitch about Coleman's stories don't fit the show or Gus isn't trying hard enough or whatever. I think watching them find their roles in the show is actually fun and kind of interesting. And it makes it easy for me to goof on them when they're in there. I find it enjoyable. But I like it. I do miss Dave though, because there was an element of goofing around with Dave that I feel like Coleman and Gus don't have yet. This is what I was saying about Gus, where Gus will say something silly off air, before the show. When Cullinane would do that, I almost got the feeling like Cullinane would do that before the show, almost purposely, so I would bring it up. Sometimes he would say things where I'm like, he has to know I'm going to say this on the air. Whereas when I do that with Gus, he's exaggerating. He gets angry at it and almost acts like I'm lying or something. So that's where it's weird, especially from Gus's perspective, where it's I thought he would be the guy to kind of tell Coleman all this stuff. This is how the show works. Right. These are stories you might want to look into and that. So I'm surprised with how Gus has handled some of it, but I think it's interesting to watch. Today, as we're recording this, with Steve from Gloucester, the idea of people criticizing these guys and them getting used to it. As a fan of the show, I think it's interesting to watch.
Yes, I agree with that. As a fan of the show, it's interesting. I had the same kind of difficulty that you had so I've only done shows with Dave. I did one show with Carano the very first time I went in there. And this is my only show since Dave. And I missed having him there to kind of just bounce shit off of. I was used to having that back and forth. At one point I kind of looked over and I'm like, oh shit, he's not there anymore. And even though I know Coleman really well from working with him a year in New York, I don't work with him in that environment. So I didn't really know what to, and a couple of times he cut me off and I cut him off and I got kind of frustrated. And it's Dave and I just by doing so many shows here, that had never really run into that anymore. So that was a little bit like, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder how this learning curve is affecting Mike. You're better at it than I am at the sidekick stuff. So like just working with Kirk and working that environment. So I'm like, I haven't noticed the growing pains as much as when I did it my show, but I was wondering if you having the same issues.
I think Coleman's getting used to it faster than Gus. I don't even necessarily think it's like Gus. I think Gus is rattled right now and doesn't know what the fuck to do. And I sympathize with him because I think I said this on the show the other day, but like there was a time when I realized, oh fuck, I wasn't hired to comment on stories on the show. Kirk can handle that fine without me. Like I am there for that in a sense, but what Kirk really wanted me to do was start causing trouble off air and go to, do the Red Robin thing or go to MGM or shit like that. Like that's what I was made. I didn't realize that for a long time. I think Gus probably should have realized that because it was talked about enough, but I don't know if it's his strong suit coming up with those ideas. It wasn't my strong suit. So I can understand having trouble adjusting to that. So I'm not really blaming Gus, but I think Coleman is adjusting to his role quicker than Gus is, it seems like.
Yes, and that makes sense to me for exactly what you're saying. So like Coleman has been a producer. He's gotten stuff for the Rundown for a year. Like he's done that kind of job before. Obviously working with Kirk's different, but the job itself, the duties that entail aren't that much different. Where Gus, I kind of relate to it a little bit. Like when I was starting at Barstool, I didn't know, just being told go do ideas is like almost like too much. It's like, it's like going Netflix and trying to find a movie. It's like so overwhelming. You don't know what to do.
Right.
So you have to kind of like try to hopefully figure it out. I think he's trying to figure it out, but then not to keep belaboring the point, but like you just got screamed at for not having sound, and then you just leave me and you talking to like, what are you doing?
Which
this
isn't the most important thing in the world. Kirk might not even give a shit about this, but I think it is indicative of him not quite understanding,
Yeah, like I can't imagine. And I like Gus a lot of the show, so I would be upset if he was fired. Sure. But it's like I can't imagine Coleman would just leave us. Like I don't think he would do that.
No, and but not even that though. I think I just saw the video 10 minutes before we started of Justin at the grocery store fucking with Mutt's the potatoes that Mutt buys for Thanksgiving or whatever. If I'm Gus and I see Justin do that, like if that happened to me, and luckily for me, I would have gone insane if I had a Justin out doing me at my job, because I would have seen that if I were Gus and been like, fuck, I absolutely can't go bowling tonight because I have to do something. I have to outdo Justin. I have to re-listen to the show and think of something to do that is better than what Justin just did. Because that's oddly, what's weird about it is Justin turned down the job and is probably going to go off to Chicago and is doing Gus's job for him. It's very weird.
But Kirk even this is turned into from Cheers into the Gus bashing show, but not bashing, but just
this will all be edited out, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. Actually, I don't know. Who either love this or hate this. I don't know. But like, and this is easy for us to say because we're on the side. We're not. It's easy for us to talk about someone else doing a job, just like it's easy for people to talk about the jobs that we do. But like, I don't know, man. You just had 4 hours. You're trying to call celebrities or whatever. Just turn your phone on. You've already done remember before he did the live show. He had a live stream of himself in his house, just walking around. Yeah. People wouldn't watch a live stream of Gus trying to call celebrities and getting like basically no's and stuff. That's fucking interesting.
And that's a thing where it's like, hey, because they mentioned the idea of that on the show, the first couple hours might be like, oh, he's just doing what Kirk said to do.
Right.
If he's still sitting here at 9 p.m. calling Stephen Root trying to get him on the show, that's hilarious.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
And like, especially right before Thanksgiving week, he's not going to get anyone. No one's going to be around. But that's like that. The funniness is the failure. The comedy is in the failure in that. And like, I don't know. And the fact that he didn't get anybody because it's like, I think I might have Frank Stallone is just like, but then again, like Kirk's so great at like, he'll obviously, I'm sure he's gonna give him shit for something, for this stuff on Monday. But then that'll be an entertaining listen. So I don't know what the answer is for Gus, but I do enjoy him. I don't want him to get fired. I don't.
I'll end with this. I was put in a similar position to Gus 4 years ago, I think. 2019, probably. So 4 years ago, and it was the exact same time of year. So my advice to Gus, ask about your mother's vaginal moisture at Thanksgiving.
Is that what started it all? Like they,
That's why they were like, Kirk was like, you got to do fucking something. So I was like, Mom, sit down. I'll leave you folks with that. Anything else, Chris, before we get out of here?
That's all I got. Maybe what did Kirk say? We do this quarterly, so maybe in 3 months we'll do another.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Sounds good to me, buddy. All right, my friend. Good to talk to you again. Glad we aired our grievances here on Thanksgiving. And to the rest of you guys, hope you had a good holiday. And we'll talk to you next time. But until then, sorry, we're closed.
I forgot about that.